Welcome, everyone. Today we have the privilege of having Virginia Bossman come in and instruct us on how to actually go and show completion levels in Pathways itself. Virginia we call her the guru of Pathways here in District 30. And with that, I'm going to just have Virginia take it away.
Thank you, Jim. All right, so today we're going to talk about submitting a level completion in Pathways, and we still have to also submit it in Club Central. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and see how to submit a level completion in Pathways, and then we still have to do it in Club Central. So it's currently a two-step process, and we're all looking forward to the new system where won't have to do that. The first thing you have to do is sign in to the Toastmaster system, and you'll notice if you hadn't signed in for a while that it's this beautiful blue now. Some people really love the burgundy, but it's nice to have this because we're celebrating our 100th year. And if you need to be a base camp manager, so that means president, vice president of education, or secretary of your club. And what you want to do is you want to go into base camp. So that's why that arrow is there. Okay, so you click on that and see, you are in base camp. Now, if you're like me and you're in more than one club, then it's going to ask you, what club are you representing as base camp manager? Okay, so the only club where I'm actually a base camp manager is the Mount Prospect Club. So I would click that. And so here it says, which club do you want to interact as a base camp manager? So before it was asking you what club you were representing. And this is where are you actually a base camp manager? So it's obviously the same club. Now, right away, they're asking you, do you have a pending request that you need to work on? Did you want to run some reports on your members' progress? Or did you want to look at some of the cool tutorials that they have on Basecamp? We want to look at pending requests. Now, I didn't have any pending requests, so I had to use one of Toastmasters examples. And so you see the burgundy. And we do have someone who has completed level 1 in motivational strategies. So we're going to click on that. Okay. And I'm approving it. And this was the example that they used that you could put in there, that who you are and what your title is, that you approved it. So I could put, if I was doing one right now, I could say Virginia Bosserman, president of Mount Prospect Toastmasters, approved this. And then what you do is you submit. Okay. So the pathways part is fairly straightforward, but now you have to go back and you need to get into Club Central. And, as an officer, everybody can get into Club Central who's an officer. And you're going to go into here. You're not going to go into the officer roles, and you're not going to get into the tutorials. So there's Club Central. And I'm in the Mount Prospect Club. So I still have to, that's where my person is that I'm submitting the level completion for. Okay. And I'm going to do submit education works. This is where you do things for your members. Okay. Where when you have new members, where someone says they have a change of address, or where you want to run a report on your members and you want to see who's in Pathways and who's not, all kinds of great information about your club. But here we want to submit an education award. All right. And then I'm the officer who's doing it. And then here is the education program. Okay. And then they ask you, does the member want a letter of recognition sent to their employer? Especially members in corporate clubs, they may want that because their company is sponsoring them and paying a portion or all of their dues. So that may be something that they would want. Typically, people in community clubs, their companies aren't involved, and so they don't want that. And what you want to do is you want to review that everything is correct. So at this point, this is a real one, and I actually had completed a level request that Jerry approved, and it was for me. Okay, and so that's what it looked like when he did it. So it reiterates what you have done. So you want to double check that that's what you were supposed to be submitting for. Okay. And then when you're done, it asks you what you want to do next. Do you want to go back to Club Central and do some other work? Do you have another award that you want to submit? Okay. And you would click on whichever you want to do. Okay. Now, you may want to print a certificate for someone in your club, and it doesn't have to be right when you approved it. You can always go back in later to print certificates. So maybe you want to have a club event and print all the certificates at the same time and give all the certificates, maybe the club's anniversary or the end of the Toastmaster year. Okay. So this is how you would do that. So you go into the path and you go into, let's see if this is in the way, level completion overview. Okay. And I know it sounds kind of funny, but it's going to give you an overview of the people in your club. So the club that you selected, how they're doing in their levels. Okay. So you're going to go, remember before we went into pending requests, but now we're going into member progress. This is where you run all your reports. You can disregard mine, but I have a newer member who has completed his level 1. And one of the other officers had already clicked on the approval, so I didn't have to do that, but no one ever gave him a certificate. So I'm going to be running a certificate for him. So I select him, and then I can actually look and see. I can even click on these and get more information, but all I really want to see is that it's been completed. Okay, since I wasn't the one who initially approved it. And he indeed has. So that's how, just want to show you here at the bottom, he's got in level 2, he's already opened up the first project, the understanding your communication style. It's in progress. He hasn't completed it yet, but he's working on it. And then you can see the next one, effective body language. He hasn't even looked at it yet because he hasn't finished the first one. So that's how you can look and see how your members are doing in Pathways, because sometimes they just keep on going and they don't submit it. And then they say, hey, I'm already on a level 3. And you're looking in the system going, it's never been marked as complete. Okay. So, but his level 1 is completed. And all I had to do was click on print. And see that? Daniel Rex and Morag Matheson, all there. And all you have to do is print it out and give it to them. All right. Do we have any questions or comments from the audience?
Virginia, I have a question.
Yes, Jim.
When you go and you visit some clubs like that, do you find that the VPE and the president, secretary, that they seem to be confused about this particular aspect?
It depends, of course, on the club. Yes, some of the officers, only one of the three that are able to do it, the president, VPE, and secretary. Sometimes the secretary never gets involved in it. Some of the clubs, because all three of them will get the email and then they don't know who's going to do it. So sometimes the club will agree that this officer is going to do it. If they can't do it, they will notify one of the other two officers and have them do it. And because otherwise it's like, okay, who's doing it, right? You have to
Mhm.
decide that. The other thing is that some people aren't as familiar with Basecamp, and it can be tricky. And of course, now we don't know how Basecamp will change with the new improvements. Obviously we won't have to make it a two-step process once we approve it in Basecamp. We won't have to do a level completion in Club Central. So they may make printing the certificate and things like that done. They may even improve some of the reports that Basecamp managers can run. So we'll just have to see what comes. But yeah, I don't get as many questions about this, but maybe it's just that they don't realize that they're not doing something that they need to do. I ran into that a lot last year. What I usually get, what they usually ask me to come to their club for is to help people get enrolled in pathways, that they have members that are struggling, picking their path, that sort of thing.
Did you want to talk a little about that today as well?
I can even, let me stop the share. I could go to that presentation. Look at that. I even have it open. Okay,
So hopefully, as you're looking for that, hopefully people, when they're watching this video today, will understand that in fact it is, at least at this time, is a two-step process, because it seems that some people miss that second step. And so
yes,
today we went through that and we showed that you actually have to do it in both places in order for it to be registered, if you will, within the Toastmaster system, that the person has actually completed that level so that they get credit, plus that your club gets credit. And that's also important. We want to make sure that your club is actually getting recognized for having its members complete various educational levels too. So it's not just about you, it's about having your club be viewed and respected as a club that's actively engaged in having people get their educational goals met. Thank you.
okay. So this portion is about actually getting familiar with the current Toastmasters International Pathways website and how to pick a path and how to then get back into it after you've gotten out. There's a few people who have had problems with that. So let's just take a quick look at this and see if this will help someone in your club. So of course, everything that you want to do, you need to log in. And if you've never logged in, then that's a whole different ballgame. But you just click on it and you have to create a password and all of that good stuff. It's not any different than any other website. So this is how you would do that. You'd put in your email, or you can put your member ID. I have enough trouble remembering phone numbers. I can't ever remember my member ID. So I go with my email, and then you just pick a password. Okay. If you ever forget your password, you can click on that and they'll send you an email or they'll have you reset it. Okay. And then once you're in and you want to choose a path, it's right there front and center, and it's $20. Now, if you are a brand new member, it's 20, that has been included when they figured out your joining fee. Okay, so you don't have to pay for it again. So, but it's always going to show that because sometimes you might want to get another path, especially if you've finished a path. Okay. So at this point, we're choosing a path, but we have already paid. Okay. And so we're not going to go to Basecamp or any of these. We're going to click this. Now, Toastmasters will always ask you what language, and that is because we have materials in many different languages. So you would use the drop down and you would select your language. I have enough trouble with English, so I don't want to do anything in another language. Now it's going to ask you, how would you like to access your materials? What do you mean? Well, let's see. Do you want to access it digitally? Well, that used to be that you could order a book. You can't. So I'm pretty sure this question will go away at some point within the new system. But how would you like to select your learning path? Now, are you like me and you want to look at all the options and compare them? Kind of like, picking a subject that you're going to register for out of a catalog? Or would you like to take the assessment and have Toastmasters recommend a path that you might like based on how you answered the questions? So you have your option. What would you like to do? Well, I already told you, I want to see them all. I want to see the difference between them. So I'm going to click on one and it's going to open up and it's going to show me all the different projects that are available to me, which ones are required and which ones are elective. Okay. And now this one, innovative planning, is one that I have done, and that is one that is no longer available. So we'll talk about that, how some of the paths, they decided not to move into the new system. But if I was still working in this path, it wouldn't make any difference. As long as there are people still working in the path, they will keep it live in the current system. It just won't move over and have the new look and feel of the new system. Okay, so what if I had said, I want to take the assessment. I'm just curious to see what you recommend for me. I might not pick it. I don't have to pick it just because you recommend it. Let's see. Well, this is what will pop up. Again, the first thing you're going to do is select your language. And of course, I'm English all the way. So here's the question. Which out of this list here, which 3 topics are you interested in learning about from this list? So if you said coaching and negotiation and time management, they might recommend later on a different path. If you said public speaking and speech writing and interpersonal communication, they would recommend another path, probably presentation mastery or engaging humor. Okay. So like I said, it might be interesting for you to go through and see what the system recommends. You can still say, nope, I want to pick my own, but it might be interesting. So once you have your path, how do you actually get into it and do some work? Well, when you sign in, you're going to go to Basecamp, right? See how it says, access your learning path and tutorials. Now, I had a hard time getting used to that term. Why do they call it Basecamp? So I finally made something up for myself to help me remember. Toastmasters moved to Colorado. Colorado is a beautiful state where I used to go camping when I was younger. So Basecamp sounds like when I was camping, and that's where all the good stuff is. That's where the cooler is. That's where the box with the snacks are. So that's what I tell myself. I always want to go to Basecamp because that's where my good stuff is here in Pathways. That's where my personal learning path is. Okay. So that's where you get to your path. Well, you know, if you're in more than one club, you have to say which one you're representing, even if all you're doing is learning. And that is so that if you wind up finishing up a level while you're doing this, then they know which of your clubs to notify that you have completed a level. Okay. And the other thing is, which I have found out the hard way, is if people are not logged in. So let's say right now I'm logged into the Mount Prospect Club, but what if my Toastmasters on Purpose Club, if the base camp manager wants to run a report on me, she's not going to see it because I'm logged in for my other club. So that's one of the complications when you're in more than one club. So if your base camp manager says, hey, I couldn't find you on my report and I was checking out to see how everyone's doing on their paths, say, oh, I'm sorry, I must have been signed into my other club. So let me go ahead and sign it so you can run your report tonight. So that's kind of an odd thing. Maybe that will change, maybe it won't. I don't know. Okay, so here I am. I want to get into my path. Okay, they call it an education transcript. Remember, this is a learning management system, but that's where I get to do my work. All right, this is where I go. If I'm going to be doing a speech evaluation, I want to go ahead and get the form ahead of time. All right, so you can do that even though you're not in the path. And then, of course, here's where all the cool tutorials are, and you can see how to launch your project. So let's go in and look at that. All right, so this is a level 1. Did you know that level 1 is exactly the same in every single path? You know what's cool about that? Is that if you're a new Toastmaster and someone else is a new Toastmaster, and you have picked different paths and you're in level 1, you have the same exact projects. You can talk to each other about those projects. Or if that really experienced Toastmaster that you might want to be your mentor is on a different path, and maybe they've already finished one path, it doesn't make any difference what path you're on, because that first level is exactly the same. So all of the experienced Toastmasters that are in pathways, level 1, exactly the same. All right. And so the first thing everybody does is their icebreaker. And then you write a speech with purpose. Then you start to learn about vocal variety and body language and use it in a speech. And this is where you get to learn about evaluation and feedback. We always give speech evaluations, unless it's a contest, to a speaker. And in this project, you not only get your evaluation, you then take that evaluation and apply it to the speech and change the speech using those suggestions and give it again. And it's very interesting how it turns out the second time, how people can so easily see the improvements. And then you submit that you have completed that level. That's a very important step. If you don't submit this, your base camp manager will never know that you completed that level. Okay, you can't just say when you're at the club, hey, I finished level 1, could you approve it for me? If they didn't get a link, they have no idea of knowing, and they can't come in. You have to do that, okay, in order to move it along in the system. And you can print your own certificate. How about that? And those are real people at Toastmasters. Daniel Rex is the CEO, and Morag Mathieson is the international president. Okay. And then once everything has been approved by your base camp manager, you can go into level 2 and see, now you are 17% through your path. but you haven't done anything in level 2 yet, so it's at 0. But you did level 1, so you completed 17%. Now, level 2 is very similar in all paths. Every path, you are either going to learn about your leadership style, you're going to learn and all the other leadership styles and how they work together, or you're going to learn about your communication style and all the other communication styles and how they work together. Or like this path, you get a bonus and you get both. So that you don't pay any extra for that. It just happens to be that way. And that's just for a few of the paths. So again, something you have in common, no matter what the other people in your club, what path they're in, they had to do it too. So if you have questions about the project, you can ask them. And then you're going to learn about Toastmasters mentoring, and then you're going to give a speech about a mentor that you may have had in your life, whether it was at work, whether it was in Toastmasters, whether it was in Scouts, whatever it was. And then again, level completion. All right, it's not that hard. So when you are actually in your path and you want to open up the project that you're working on, you have to click on this burgundy arrow, okay? Oh, I don't know why that showed up, okay? And now here is when you are just coming into Toastmasters and you want to show somebody where things are, you can, for a visitor to your club, you can show them, sample your first project. You know what that is? That's the icebreaker. That's in level 1. And that's very cool because you could click on that. If this wasn't a slide, I could click on that and I would get at the top the link to it. And I could send that visitor a link to the icebreaker, and they can see what that first project would be if they joined, and they get a feel for what a learning management system is like when it's about Toastmasters, as opposed to something that their HR department sent out that everybody in the company has to do. Okay. This is how we learn in Toastmasters. And this is where you can get overviews on the paths, where you can see the paths and projects. You can see the translation options, and then people who need more accessible materials, and of course, achievement and awards, excuse me. So when I sign out and I sign back in, there's your member ID. If you ever have to find your member ID and don't know where it is, if you ever wonder how long you've been a member, and where are you going to go, Jim, to get to the good stuff?
You're going to go to base camp.
Well, because that's where all the good stuff is.
That's where all the good stuff is.
All right. And that's how you get in. And there you are again. Whatever you've done, it's right there. Now, I talked about a little bit how that there are paths that you will not be able to select, okay? These are the paths that are staying, and you will be able to select when we move into our new system. And it just so happens that these were the most popular paths based on Toastmasters reports. And so that's why they chose these to stay. Dynamic leadership, engaging humor. I could personally recommend that one. Motivational strategies, presentation mastery. I could personally recommend that one. Persuasive influence and visionary communication. I'm currently in that path. These are the paths that if you already selected them, you will have as much time as you need to complete them, but they will not go into the new system with the new look and feel. You will access them exactly the way you do now, and they will look exactly the way they look now. If you just joined Toastmasters, these are no longer available to you. The little icon will show on the sheet, And in the smallest fine print underneath, it will say not available after January 1st, 2024. So unfortunately, these are not going to be available to you. But again, if someone says, oh my gosh, I've got that path, now I won't be able to work in it, you can reassure them, yes, you will. As long as you're working in the path, it will stay available. Okay? And these are the languages that will be available in the new system: Arabic, English, French, German, simplifies Chinese, and Spanish. Nice variety. And that is the end of that. Any questions?
I do have one question. Isn't
Yes,
there also a specialized like mini path on mentoring?
there is. It's a special project that you can get into when you're in base camp. And yes, yeah, it's a mini, but it doesn't go particularly to any particular path. Everybody gets to do that. And I did hear or read somewhere that they were they were thinking of doing some sort of advanced projects, or some kind of like that one that they put out there for everyone. So it'll be interesting to see the new things that will be available to us who've already done quite a bit of pathways. You may have to have completed at least 2 levels, to do them. We don't know anything about what those requirements will be.
And yes, I think you have to have at least the second level done before you can get that
Makes
mentoring path
sense.
in that case.
Yeah.
Uh, and my understanding is there's no extra charge for that, correct?
Nope. No extra
So that's a
charge.
freebie. So you get 2 levels done, you get a
Well, you know
freebie
what? Let me
bonus.
tell you, there's all kinds of freebies in pathways, because you have to do the required projects, but you don't get charged extra if you want to do all those electives in level 3. And there are some cool electives in level 3. So, hey, you could be in that path a long time having a lot of fun.
Great. Any other words of wisdom before we close out this particular session?
Well, I can say, as someone who's been a Toastmaster for 13 years, then had 2 DTMs, that I was very happy with the traditional program. I especially loved the choices of the advanced manuals, but I also have very much enjoyed pathways and all the new electives in pathways. And I'm really looking forward to these other things that they're going to be adding to pathways. And I just submitted my pathways DTM. And I actually think it's easier in pathways than it was in the traditional program. You had to juggle a lot of different books and figure out all the different things. When pathways, you just keep on going and do 2 paths and whatever the other requirements are. It's much more straightforward. That's my personal opinion.
And that's actually a good point for those people who are thinking that they might like to finish their DTM and get that credential on their name as well. You
Mhm.
have to have 2 complete paths. That means all the way through
Exactly.
level 5. And there are a few other requirements. You have to
Right.
do a term as a district leader in terms of either being an area director, etc. You have to coach a club or be a sponsor of a brand new club or a
Right.
mentor. So there's a couple other things that are involved in it, but you too can earn your DTM by going
Right.
through the whole program.
Right. And that's exactly the same as a traditional program. You had to do all that in the traditional
Right.
program as well. So it's not like they made it any harder. I actually think because of the path is one long thing that you just keep progressing in, it's easier than picking all these other books and doing all the other levels. But again, that's my personal opinion.
Great. Thank you again, Virginia, for
You're
giving us some
welcome.
information here. Hopefully, people will get something out of this and it will help them choose a path if they haven't chosen it already, or choosing a second path if they've
Yep.
been a little, let's say it's been a few years since you started your first one and you're kind of a little rusty and you want to get like, hey, how do I do that again? That this video is helpful for that. And also for those officers who are approving level completions for the first part of your talk here today on how to get that done under the current system where you got to do it in 2 places rather than just the one. Hopefully the new system at some point later on this year will come in and we can just do it in one spot. So thank you again,
Absolutely.
Virginia. At this point, I'm going to close out this presentation. Thanks again for
Awesome.
watching.
You're welcome.